Hello everyone. Now in this tutorial we are going to understand the data logger. Normally if you want to store the data into some database, then data logger is most important tools from the Kepserver. Okay, so in this tutorial I will explain you how you can store the data into SQL Server and MS Access database. So before you use the data logger, you have to create some database file. Okay, so let me connect here to my local database and I will select yes. So here I have to create a database, so I will just click new database and I will say log. Okay, this is my database for the data storing. I will say okay. Now here, first of all, you have to go into the security, and in the security, you will find anti-authority system, and you have to click here in the property, and you can see in the user mapping, you have to select cap log. Okay, and I will say okay. Now in the cap log, you have to go again, and in the security, in the user, this anti-authority system must be here, and you have to go into the property and okay, this is okay. Now in the cap log, go property, and in the property or in the permission you have to enable this all required option. So I will right now enable all this required option, because why we need this grant permission, because we are creating the table inside this cap log database from the Kepserver. That's why we have to enable this all grant permission. So let me tick all this. So when you create your own project, you have to select only few grant. So as per your requirement, it is not necessary that you tick all this. So I will click OK, and I will disconnect and connect again. So my database is ready to accept data from the Kepserver. Now the second thing you have to do is, okay, let me open this one, and I will write here add log group. So here I will say cap data, cap data, cap data log. Okay, and here I will define the DSN. So you have to define the data source name, and I will say configure. Now in this DSN we have to use system DSN, and I will say add. I will select SQL server, and I will write the name cap data log. Okay, and I will say SQL, cap data log SQL. Now here you have to define which server you want to connect. So I will go here, and I will copy this one. Okay, and here I will write the server name here. Okay, now just click next. You have to select the database, so I will select caplog is my database. I will select next and finish. Now test completed successfully. Okay, so my database and DSN name is created perfectly. I will say OK. Now here I have to select Cap Data SQL and I will say OK. Now here we need some settings to be followed. So log to an existing table. We don't have any existing table right now. So we will create new table once and always append to this table. And I will say cap log table. Cap log table. And I will say wide each item and its own column mapping. I will say OK. Now in the column mapping, here you can see okay, let me go here and let me select narrow. Okay, and I will say log item. In this log item you have to select the tag which you want to log into the SQL server. So I will say device 2 and temperature and I will say OK. Now again I will go to column mapping. Okay, and these are the by default column settings. So in the times tab it is the date and time database, so it is OK. Now let me check that our settings is working or not. If there is an error, we have to change the settings. So I will if you want to enable the data logging, you have to click here, or you can right click here and enable the log group. When you enable the log group, yes, you can see my table is created. You can see my table is created into the database, as well as the logging is starting. Okay, so our setting is working perfectly in this logging, cap logging and data logging function of Kepserver. So let me go into the Microsoft SQL Studio and check that data is coming or not. So this is cap log, and in the table, yes, you can see my table is created as per our requirement. Now if I go here and edit 200 rows, then my data must be here. If the data is not here, it means that we have made some mistake. But yes, my data is right now available and it is coming perfectly. You can see with the date and time and with the value. Okay, so the data logging into the SQL server is perfectly working. Okay, we don't have any issue with the data logging into the into the SQL server. But now what we want to do, we want to create the data logging into the we can say into the Access database as well as Access Excel. Okay, so how we can do is, let me stop this cap log and let me go to the property, and here in the DSN name I will change the DSN. In the system DSN, what I will do, I will add this one and I will say driver to Microsoft Access database. Okay, Microsoft Access database. This one. Okay, and I will define the name Cap Access database. Okay, so let me copy this one. Now I will create one database file, and here we have one folder into the F new folder 2. So I will go there. I will say F new folder 2 and I will say database 1. Okay, and I will say create. So one file into F new folder 2 database 1 MDB is created. you can see database 1 is created. So I will select that one and I will say OK. So now my data file of the cap data will store here, and I will say OK. Now I have to select the DSN name is cap access database and click OK. Now here I will say access table. Okay, and I will say create new table, right? OK. So in the column mapping we have to check is there any error is or not. So it is looks OK. Now here I will enable the log again, and you can see the table name is created and DSN is also working and log group is also connected with the access database. Okay, so here you can see my file is getting data here, and file has some memories also here. It means that data is storing into the database file perfectly. So if I refresh it, my data is also refreshed inside the access database. So what I will do is I will stop the logging here. Okay, and I will access this database into the Kepserver Excel file. So what you have to do is you have to open the Kepserver Excel file. This is a new Excel file that I have created. Okay, so whatever the data that we have received, we have stored into this access database, we will open that database file into Kepserver Excel file. Okay, so let me open here, and into the data I will select this from access. Okay, and I will go into F, new folder 2, and select database, and it will say that where you want to get this table. So let me select this C7, and I will say OK. So you can see whatever the data that we have received into the SQL Studio, the same type of data we are getting into the Access database. Okay, and right now we are getting that data into the Excel file as well as. Okay, you can get that SQL database, this SQL database also into Excel, and you know that procedure also, but still I can explain you how you can do that. So here you have to write the, you can say database name. I will say copy, and I will say paste, next, and this caplog is my database name, and I will say next and finish, and this one. So you can say we have received our data file, our log file from SQL server as well as from the Access database. So now you have a two method that how you can get the data from SQL as well as from the Access database. But one thing you should remember, that if your DSN is not perfect, what is the DSN? DSN is the data source name. You must have to define perfect DSN value into the system. Okay, right now here you can see my SQL, my Kepserver is not 64-bit. My Kepserver is 32-bit of the, we can say, operating system. That's why I have used the system DSN. Okay, because in system DSN my platform will always 32-bit. But if I use the user DSN, then you can see I have defined SQL server and it is 32/64-bit. So sometimes it can create issue. So use system DSN and in the system DSN you will have 32-bit platform, because our Kepserver is 32-bit. Okay, you all know here in the server configuration Kepserver is 32-bit platform. So it is necessary that you understand which is your platform. If you select a wrong platform, then your driver will not work. You can see here. So in the data logger, your DSN name and is perfect. Okay, if you don't select this one, then your driver will not work. Okay, so right now we have created perfect DSN. Now I would like to explain you the trigger. Okay, so right now I have one trigger that is always on. Okay, always trigger. So you can create a trigger also, and I will say new trigger 2, and in this trigger time you can create time based trigger. Okay, so if you select start logging time and stop logging time, you can select here. Okay, you can also select which day you want to do logging. Okay, so it is also sometimes important to manage your memory, your database memory. Suppose you have limited database memory, then it is necessary that you store only few data at few time. Okay, if you log every time some data into database, then it will fool your PC memory. So it is not good thing that you manage. You always define always trigger. Okay, so right now we can see we have starting log time of 8 a.m. to stop logging time at 5 p.m. and you can select the day. Suppose you don't want to make logging at the Saturday, then you select no. Okay, so this is the things that you need to understand, that how we can define the trigger. Now third trigger is also there, condition based, means you can have defined some condition, that when this condition is true, then only our data will log. Okay, so here you have to define some tag. So suppose you define uh, this tag, speed change tag. So when this tag is on, then and then only data logging will possible. Okay, so I hope you have understand this data logger, because data logger is most important things nowadays, because you want to store your all important data into database. You can write the query here, and you can, if you have logged the data, you can find your 5-year-old data, 2-year-old data, 1-year-old data, all types of data you can find with the use of SQL query. So nowadays it is necessary that you store the data. So the Kepserver data logger is most important thing, because it is also providing trigger based data logging. That is most important thing. So if you have any query related to data logger, you can ask me. Okay, so I hope you like this data logger tutorial. If you have any question, you can ask me.